The Calthrine warship emerged from jump space like a predator sensing blood in water. Its sensors had detected the distress beacon 3 hours ago, and now the damaged human vessel floated before them, spinning slowly in the void. Captain Thronax examined the small craft with satisfaction. Humans were new to the galaxy, barely worth noticing, but their technology could be studied and their secrets extracted. The boarding team moved through the airlock with practiced efficiency. The human ship was small, designed for scouting rather than combat. Atmosphere leaked from a jagged hole in the starboard hull. Emergency lights flickered weakly. The Calthrine soldiers found her in the cockpit, slumped over the controls. She looked unremarkable, middle-aged by human standards, with dark hair streaked with gray and weathered skin. Her uniform was torn and stained with dried blood. No weapons nearby, no threatening movements. Just another broken soldier waiting for death in the cold embrace of space. They dragged her to their ship. She did not resist. Her eyes remained closed during transport, and the medical scanner confirmed she was unconscious but stable. Captain Thronax barely glanced at her as she was carried past his command chair. Humans were weak creatures, soft and fragile compared to most galactic species. This one would break easily enough. The prisoner was logged into the system as Elena Volkov, Colonel, Human Defense Force. Her identification chip provided basic information, but little else. The ship's computer assigned her a prisoner number and transmitted the data to Detention Complex Omega 7, a space station deep in Calthrine territory, where important prisoners were taken for questioning. The journey took 4 days. Elena remained unconscious for the first 2, recovering from injuries and decompression. When she finally woke, she found herself in a sterile medical bay, her wounds treated and her body restrained to a table. A Calthrine medical officer stood nearby recording data on a transparent display. She said nothing. Her dark eyes simply observed, taking in every detail of her surroundings. The medical officer noticed she was awake and called for the guards. They transferred her to a holding cell without ceremony, magnetically sealed restraints around her wrists and ankles. Inquisitor Zarthex reviewed her file with mild interest. He had broken thousands of prisoners during his long career. Different species required different approaches, but fear was universal. Pain was universal. Everyone had a breaking point, and he had never failed to find it. He decided to begin with simple questioning. Establish dominance, make the prisoner understand their helplessness, then gradually increase pressure until they cracked. Standard procedure, efficient and effective. The interrogation room was designed for psychological impact. Harsh white lights, bare metal walls, a single chair in the center, restraints built into the arms and legs. Cameras recording from multiple angles. The temperature could be adjusted from freezing to sweltering. Sounds could be amplified or dampened, every element controlled to break down resistance. Elena was brought in by 4 guards. She walked calmly between them, her movements steady despite the restraints. They secured her to the chair and stepped back to the walls, weapons ready. Zarthex entered and studied her for a long moment. She looked back at him with those dark, unreadable eyes. No fear, no anger. No pleading. Just calm observation. "I am Inquisitor Zarthex," he said in his clicking, rasping voice. The translator device rendered his words into English. "You are Colonel Elena Volkov of the Human Defense Force. Your ship was found in restricted Calthrine space. You will answer questions about human military positions, fleet movements, and Earth's defensive capabilities. Silence. Your cooperation will determine the comfort of your remaining time alive." Zarthex continued. "Resistance is pointless. We have broken beings far stronger than humans. You will tell us what we wish to know. The only question is how much suffering you will endure first." Still nothing. Elena's expression remained neutral, almost serene. Zarthex felt the first stirring of irritation. Most prisoners showed some reaction at this stage. Fear, defiance, resignation, something. This human woman sat as if she were merely waiting for a transport, not facing interrogation by the galaxy's most feared intelligence service. "Where were you traveling when your ship was damaged?" Zarthex asked. No response. "How many human ships operate in this sector?" Silence. "What are Earth's defensive positions?" Nothing. The questions continued for an hour. Zarthex varied his tone, alternating between threatening and reasonable. Elena never spoke. Her eyes never left his face, but she gave away nothing. Finally, Zarthex ordered the guards to take her back to her cell. He would try different methods tomorrow. Sleep deprivation, perhaps, or sensory manipulation. Something to crack that unnatural calm. As the guards released her restraints, one of them noticed something on her forearm. A small tattoo partially hidden beneath dried blood and grime. He cleaned the area with a rough cloth, revealing the image clearly. A mortar and pestle, rendered in simple black lines. The guard meant to report it but forgot in the routine of processing the prisoner back to her cell. Just another marking, nothing important. In the command center, Station Commander Velkash reviewed daily reports. The new human prisoner had arrived, been medically cleared and undergone initial interrogation. Standard procedure, nothing remarkable. A junior intelligence officer approached hesitantly. "Commander, I've been analyzing intercepts from human military channels. There are rumors about special operatives, enhanced soldiers. They call them something strange. Baba Yaga." Velkash barely looked up. Humans and their myths. Every species claims to have elite warriors. Focus on verifiable intelligence, not folklore. The officer retreated, embarrassed, but he could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The rumor had appeared in multiple intercepts, always spoken with unusual fear. Human soldiers warning each other about encounters with something that moved like death itself. Meanwhile, in her cell, Elena sat on the narrow metal bench and examined her surroundings with the same calm attention she had shown during interrogation. The walls were reinforced alloy. The door was magnetically sealed. Security cameras covered 3 angles. Ventilation came through narrow slits near the ceiling. The gravity was slightly heavier than Earth standard. She flexed her hands, feeling the bones and muscles respond. The Calthrine medical team had done adequate work treating her injuries, but they had missed the important details. The subdermal armor that made her bones nearly unbreakable. The enhanced muscle fibers that gave her 3 times human strength. The neural implants that accelerated her reflexes and pain tolerance. They saw an ordinary human woman. They had no idea what she really was. Elena closed her eyes and began the meditation routine that helped her enhanced systems recover. The torture would begin soon, she knew. The Calthrine were predictable in their methods. They believed pain and fear were universal weapons. They had no idea that pain and fear were precisely what she had been trained to endure. What she had been broken and rebuilt to withstand. What she had volunteered to experience because someone had to become the thing that monsters feared. A slight smile touched her lips. Gone in an instant, the Calthrine had made their first mistake by capturing her. They would make many more before they understood what they had done. But by then, it would be far too late. 5 days passed in the detention complex, and Inquisitor Zarthex found himself experiencing something unusual. Frustration. The human prisoner had endured every standard interrogation technique without showing the slightest sign of breaking. Sleep deprivation had no effect. Elena simply sat in her cell with her eyes open, breathing steadily while the lights blazed and noise blasted from the speakers. 72 hours without rest, and when they brought her to interrogation, she walked with the same steady calm as before. Sensory deprivation failed equally. 3 days in complete darkness and silence, and she emerged unchanged. Her vital signs remained stable throughout. No psychological breakdown. No begging for human contact, nothing. Zarthex escalated to chemical interrogation. Truth serums that had never failed to loosen tongues. Elena's enhanced metabolism processed the drugs before they could take effect. But the Calthrine did not know this. They only saw another failure, another technique that somehow did not work on this unremarkable human woman. The Inquisitor's pride began to transform into anger. His reputation was built on breaking prisoners quickly and efficiently. This human was making him look incompetent. Word was spreading through the station that the famous Zarthex could not crack a single ordinary soldier. "Increase measures," he ordered. "Begin physical interrogation." The guards exchanged glances. Physical torture was usually unnecessary. Most species broke under psychological pressure alone. But the Inquisitor had given an order, and they would obey. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, a priority message reached Earth's high command. The automated distress beacon from Elena's ship had finally been retrieved by a human patrol vessel. The data was analyzed and cross-referenced with current personnel deployments. Admiral Chen sat in the emergency conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing military positions across 3 sectors. His second-in-command, General Morrison, entered with a data tablet and an expression of deep concern. "Admiral, we've identified the pilot of the damaged scout ship, and—" Morrison handed him the tablet. Chen looked at the file and felt his blood run cold. "Volkov, Elena, classification Baba Yaga 3. The room fell silent. Every officer present knew what that designation meant. The Baba Yaga protocol was humanity's darkest secret. The program that created living weapons out of volunteers willing to sacrifice their humanity for Earth's protection. "How long has she been in enemy hands?" Chen asked quietly. 8 days, sir. Based on the beacon data, she was captured by a Calthrine warship and likely taken to one of their interrogation facilities. Chen stood and walked to the large display showing Calthrine territory. "Send an immediate message to the Calthrine High Command. Priority Alpha. Demand the immediate release of Colonel Volkov under the terms of the Galactic Convention on Prisoners of War. Sir, they'll want to know why this particular prisoner is so important. Tell them the truth. Tell them exactly what she is. Maybe they'll be smart enough to let her go before it's too late." The message was transmitted through official diplomatic channels. It passed through 3 levels of Calthrine bureaucracy before reaching a minor official at a regional communications hub. He read the message and laughed. Humans demanding the release of a prisoner, claiming she was some kind of special operative, obviously a bluff. These primitive newcomers thought they could intimidate the mighty Calthrine Empire with empty threats. He filed the message in a low-priority queue and forgot about it. Back on Detention Complex Omega 7, Elena was strapped to a different kind of chair. This one was designed to inflict pain. Neural induction nodes pressed against her skull, electrodes attached to her skin, chemical injectors positioned near major arteries. Zarthek stood before her, his alien features twisted into what might have been satisfaction. "Humans have pain receptors throughout your bodies. Very sensitive pain receptors. You are about to experience levels of suffering your species was not designed to endure." Elena looked at him with those same calm, dark eyes. "I will ask questions." Zarthex continued. "You will answer. If you do not answer, the pain will increase. There is no limit to how much suffering this device can inflict. You will beg me to let you talk. They all do eventually." He activated the neural inducer at its lowest setting. The device sent signals directly to pain receptors, creating the sensation of burning throughout the nervous system. Prisoners usually screamed at this level. Elena's jaw tightened slightly. That was all. Zarthex increased the intensity, then increased it again, and again. He reached levels that should have rendered the prisoner unconscious from shock. Elena's breathing quickened and sweat appeared on her forehead, but she made no sound. "Impossible," Zarthex muttered. He checked the device. It was functioning correctly. The human should be in unbearable agony. He switched to the electrodes. Electric current coursed through her body, muscles spasming involuntarily. Still no scream, no begging. Just that same terrible silence. Hours passed. Zarthex tried every method the chair offered. Elena endured. Her enhanced body was designed for this, rebuilt at the cellular level to withstand trauma that would kill ordinary humans. But more than that, her mind had been trained through years of conditioning. Pain was just information. Suffering was just another sensation to be observed and catalogued. Finally, exhausted and enraged, Zarthex leaned close to her face. "What are you? Why won't you break?" Elena's lips moved for the first time since her capture. When she spoke, it was in perfect Calthrine, her accent flawless. "You've made a mistake." The words sent a chill through Zarthex, not because of what she said, but how she said it. No fear, no pain, just a simple statement of fact, delivered with absolute certainty. "Increase all settings to maximum," he ordered the technician. "I want to hear her scream." The technician hesitated. "Inquisitor, that level could cause permanent damage. Even death." "Do it. The device is activated at maximum intensity." Elena's body went rigid, every muscle locked in spasm. Her eyes closed, and for a moment, Zarthex thought he had finally succeeded. Then a power fluctuation rippled through the station's systems. The magnetic restraints holding Elena's wrists failed for exactly 3 seconds. In that brief window, she moved. Her right hand came free and struck the nearest guard in the throat, crushing his windpipe. Before he fell, she had grabbed his weapon. Her left hand tore free and she shot the second guard twice in the center mass. Both guards were dead before their bodies hit the floor. The restraints reactivated, Elena was locked back in place, the weapon falling from her hand. But the damage was done. The guards were dead, and everyone in that room had seen how she moved, not like a tortured prisoner, not like someone in pain, like a machine designed for killing, executing a perfect response with inhuman speed and precision. Zarthek stumbled backward. The remaining guards raised their weapons, but he held up a hand. Neural shock, now. They fired stunning devices that flooded Elena's nervous system with overwhelming signals. She slumped in the chair, unconscious at last. In the command center, Station Commander Velkash watched the security footage with growing horror. He replayed the moment of escape over and over. The efficiency, the speed, the absolute lack of hesitation. "Get me everything we have on this prisoner," he ordered. "Not just the basic file, everything. I want to know who she really is." His staff worked frantically, accessing intelligence databases that the Calthrine had stolen or purchased from various sources. Bits and pieces of information about human military programs, classified files that had been partially recovered, rumors and reports from conflicts in border regions. One file caught Velkash's attention, a damaged intelligence report from the Proxima system. It described a human military operation against a fortified enemy position. The assault was expected to require a full battalion and result in heavy casualties. Instead, one operative had been sent. A single human. The report ended abruptly, but the last line was clear. All targets eliminated. Operative designation Baba Yaga. Velkash searched for more references to this designation. The database returned fragments. Incomplete reports. Warnings from other species about encounters with human operatives who seemed to be more than human. Enhanced physiology. Neural augmentation. Psychological conditioning beyond normal military training. Soldiers rebuilt as living weapons. And there were only 12 of them. 12 operatives who were considered strategic assets, each one worth an entire military unit. His hands trembled as he pulled up Elena's prisoner file again. He activated a deeper scan, looking for biological anomalies that might have been missed in the initial medical examination. The results made him feel cold, despite the station's comfortable temperature. Subdermal reinforcement throughout her skeleton, muscle density far beyond human norms. Neural implants that had been mistaken for natural nerve clusters. This was not an ordinary human soldier. This was Baba Yaga 3, and they had been torturing her for 5 days. "Get Inquisitor Zarthex on communications immediately," Velkash ordered. But even as he gave the command, he knew it was too late. The interrogation room's security feed showed Elena's cell, empty. The door open. She was already loose on his station. Station Commander Velkash stood in his command center, watching security feeds flicker across multiple displays. Somewhere on his station, a nightmare was loose. He had spent the last hour learning everything he could about the Baba Yaga protocol, and each new piece of information made his situation worse. The program had been created during humanity's first major conflict with a hostile alien species. The Caraxian warlords had threatened Earth's colonies, and conventional military responses proved insufficient. So humanity did what it always did when faced with extinction. It adapted. It evolved. It created something new. The Baba Yaga protocol took volunteers and rebuilt them. Genetic modifications to enhance strength, speed, and healing. Neural implants to accelerate reflexes and process information faster than normal human brains. Psychological conditioning that removed fear responses and increased pain tolerance to inhuman levels. But the physical enhancements were only part of it. The training itself was designed to break normal humans completely before rebuilding them into something else. Years of simulated scenarios. Exposure to every form of torture that potential enemies might use. Training in every combat discipline, every weapon system, every method of killing that humanity had ever devised. The result was an operative who could infiltrate enemy positions alone, eliminate high-value targets, and escape before anyone realized what had happened. Or, if escape was not the objective, remain in place and cause maximum damage until death. Velkash found footage from the Proxima campaigns. A Caraxian fortress carved into an asteroid. Garrison of 300 warriors, armed with the best weapons money could buy. Defenses that had held against human military assaults for 6 months. One Baba Yaga operative was sent in. The cameras showed brief glimpses, a shadow moving through corridors, guards falling without sound. The footage ended after 18 hours when the fortress self-destructed. Later investigation found every single Caraxian warrior dead. The operative had destroyed their entire command structure, then detonated their own ammunition stores. The operative survived. Baba Yaga 7, according to the file, recovered from the wreckage with severe injuries that would have killed any normal human, was back on active duty within 3 months. Another file detailed Baba Yaga 1's assault on a pirate fleet. She had infiltrated their flagship as a captured slave, then systematically eliminated the entire command staff over a 2-day period while the fleet was in transit. By the time they realized what was happening, their ships were leaderless and confused. The human fleet had destroyed them easily. There were 12 Baba Yaga operatives in total. Each had a perfect mission record. Each was considered a strategic weapon, deployed only when conventional forces would fail or when the cost in human lives would be unacceptable. And Elena Volkov was Baba Yaga 3. Velkash reviewed her specific record, what little could be found. 47 successful solo missions, 0 failures. Specialization in infiltration, assassination, and facility elimination. That last term made his blood run cold. Facility elimination. It meant she was trained to destroy entire installations from within. "Commander," his tactical officer called out. "We found the first body." Velkash pulled up the security feed. A guard lay in a maintenance corridor, neck broken. Clean kill, no signs of struggle. The guard's weapon was missing. Time of death? Medical estimates approximately 40 minutes ago, right after the prisoner escaped her cell. More reports came in over the next hour. Bodies appearing throughout the station. Guards, technicians, anyone who had been involved in Elena's interrogation. Each death was quick and efficient. No wasted motion, no unnecessary cruelty. Just clean, professional elimination. But the pattern worried Velkash more than the deaths themselves. Elena was not heading toward escape pods or docking bays. She was moving deeper into the station, toward the secure areas where high-ranking intelligence officers had their quarters and offices. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She was not trying to escape. She had never intended to escape. The capture had been deliberate. Her ship had not been damaged by accident. She had allowed herself to be taken. "Seal all access routes to the intelligence sector," he ordered. "Deploy security teams to protect all senior officers. This is not an escape attempt. This is an assassination mission." But even as he gave the orders, he knew it was probably futile. Elena had been on the station for days. She had been moved, through its corridors held in its cells, taken to various interrogation rooms. She had seen the layout, memorized the security systems, identified the weak points, and they had tortured her, giving her all the motivation she needed. In a darkened corridor near the intelligence section, Elena moved silently through the shadows. Her body was battered but functional. The enhanced healing had already begun repairing the damage from the torture. The pain was still there, sharp and constant, but pain was just information. It did not slow her down. She had disabled her 7th target 3 minutes ago, one of the interrogators who had operated the chemical injection systems. He had begged for his life, offering information, cooperation, anything. Elena had ignored his pleas. This was not about information. This was about consequences. The Calthrine had made the mistake of believing humans were weak. That torture would break them. That fear was universal. They did not understand that humanity had created something beyond fear, something that embraced pain as a tool and death as an acceptable outcome. She accessed a maintenance terminal using codes she had memorized from watching technicians during her transport through the station. The security grid appeared on the display. She studied the positions of guards, the locations of officers, the best routes to her primary targets. Zarthex was in the main interrogation complex, surrounded by guards. He would be last. First, she needed to eliminate the intelligence officers whose war crimes had made them targets, the ones who designed the torture programs, the ones who ordered atrocities against prisoners. Her mission parameters were clear. Detention Complex Omega-7 housed 17 high-value targets, officers responsible for systematic torture of prisoners from multiple species. War criminals who hid behind the Calthrine Empire's military power. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. Elena moved through the ventilation system, her modified body able to squeeze through spaces that would be impossible for ordinary humans. She emerged in a senior officer's quarters. Lieutenant Commander Reshetal responsible for interrogation protocol development. He was sleeping, unaware that death had entered his room. It was over in seconds. Elena left no evidence, no signs of struggle, just another body for the station to find later. She continued through the night cycle, target after target, each kill clean and professional. The station's security forces were searching for her, but she stayed ahead of them, using access routes they did not know existed, moving through areas they did not think to guard. By the time morning cycle arrived, 9 targets were dead. 8 remained, including Zarthex. Commander Velkash had not slept. He spent the night coordinating the search, watching as his best security officers failed to find a single human woman on a station with 15,000 personnel. The bodies kept appearing. The death toll kept rising. He accessed the human military message that had been intercepted and ignored days ago, the one demanding Elena's immediate release. He read it carefully this time, noting the urgent priority codes, the official seals from Earth's High Command. At the bottom was a warning, written in plain language. Colonel Elena Volkov is classified as a Baba Yaga operative. She is to be treated in accordance with all provisions of the Galactic Convention on Prisoners of War. Failure to do so will result in consequences. You have been warned. Consequences. Such a simple word. Velkash looked at the list of dead officers on his screen. These were the consequences. This was what happened when you tortured a weapon designed to survive torture. He opened a priority channel to Calthrine High Command. For the first time in his career, he was going to request immediate military assistance. Not because he was under attack from an enemy fleet, because a single human prisoner was systematically eliminating his entire intelligence division. The request was denied. High Command did not understand the situation. They saw only a commander who could not control his own station. They ordered him to handle it internally. Velkash closed the channel and looked at the security displays. Elena's last known position was 3 sections away from the main interrogation complex. She was coming for Zarthex, and there was nothing he could do to stop her. In a storage room filled with cleaning supplies, Elena paused to assess her condition. She had been awake for 36 hours. Her injuries were healing but still painful. She had acquired weapons from fallen guards and food from an unattended storage locker. Her mission was 60% complete. She checked the weapon, a Calthrine plasma rifle. Good range, stable firing mechanism. She had 3 spare power cells, more than enough for what remained. 8 targets. 8 war criminals who thought torture was just another tool. 8 beings who would learn that some tools cut both ways. Elena closed her eyes for 10 seconds, running through the meditation, routine that helped her enhanced systems maintain peak performance. When she opened them again, she was ready. The hunt continued. The intelligence section of Detention Complex Omega-7 had become a fortress within a fortress. Every access point was guarded by multiple security teams. Motion sensors covered every corridor. Energy barriers sealed critical doorways. Commander Velkash had concentrated his remaining forces to protect the senior officers who still lived. Inquisitor Zarthex sat in the command center, surrounded by his most elite guards. 20 warriors, each trained in close combat and armed with the latest weapons. Surely even a Baba Yaga operative could not overcome such defenses, but doubt gnawed at him. He had watched the security footage of Elena's escape, seen how she moved in those 3 seconds of freedom. The speed, the precision, the absolute certainty of her actions. She had killed 2 guards before his mind could even process what was happening. "We should evacuate," suggested Major Krell, one of the surviving senior officers. "Take shuttles to the nearest fleet position. Let the military deal with this creature, and admit defeat to a single human prisoner? Zarthex's pride would not allow it. She is one being, injured and alone. We have hundreds of security personnel. She cannot reach us here. An explosion rocked the station. Alarms blared throughout the complex. Velkash pulled up the damage reports, his hands shaking. Maintenance Section 7. Someone detonated a power coupling. Atmosphere breach in 3 surrounding compartments. Elena had not triggered the explosion. She had caused it hours ago by sabotaging the coupling with a delayed timer, while security forces were searching other areas. Now, as emergency crews rushed to seal the breach, she moved through the chaos toward her next target. Commander Ithran was trying to reach an evacuation shuttle when Elena found him. He was responsible for sensory deprivation programs that had driven dozens of prisoners insane. He died quickly, too quickly perhaps, but Elena had a schedule to maintain. 2 more targets fell in the next hour. Each death sent waves of panic through the station. The remaining intelligence officers huddled in secure areas, surrounded by guards, but it did not matter. Elena found ways to reach them. Through ventilation systems, through maintenance crawlways, through access tunnels that were supposed to be too small for anyone to traverse. Her enhanced body allowed her to do things that seemed impossible. Dislocate her shoulders to squeeze through narrow spaces, then pop them back into place. Go without sleep for days while maintaining peak performance. Process tactical information at speeds that let her predict enemy movements. But beyond the physical enhancements, it was her training that made her truly dangerous. Years of instruction in infiltration techniques, studying security systems, learning to think like prey while moving like a predator. The Baba Yaga protocol had not just enhanced her body, it had transformed her entire way of thinking. She accessed a computer terminal in an abandoned office and reviewed the station's personnel files. Zarthex was still in the command center with Major Krell and 3 other senior officers. Her primary targets, all in one location, heavily defended. Elena studied the command center's layout through the computer system. Multiple entry points all guarded, security barriers on every door, internal sensors that would detect any intrusion. It was designed to be impenetrable, but everything had weaknesses. Every system had flaws. She just needed to find them. The ventilation system did not connect directly to the command center, but it did connect to adjacent rooms. The power conduits were shielded, but the shielding had maintenance access points. The security barriers were strong, but they required power, and power could be disrupted. Elena began preparing. She had learned during her years of service that successful missions required patience and planning. Rush in blindly and even a Baba Yaga operative would fail, but plan carefully, exploit weaknesses, and nearly anything was possible. She sabotaged 3 more power couplings throughout the station, setting them to overload in sequence. The cascading failures would force the emergency power systems to reroute, and during those reroutes, the security barriers would flicker offline for approximately 4 seconds. 4 seconds. It would have to be enough. While she worked, Elena allowed herself to remember why she had volunteered for the Baba Yaga protocol. It was not for glory or adventure. It was because someone had to become the thing that protected humanity from the monsters in the dark. Someone had to be willing to sacrifice their humanity so that others could keep theirs. The training had been worse than torture. They broke her systematically, exposing her to every form of pain and suffering that an enemy might inflict. Not to make her immune to pain, but to teach her that pain was not defeat, that suffering could be endured, that she could function even when her body was screaming for it to stop. They had warned her during the selection process, told her that she would never be the same, that the person who entered the program would not be the person who emerged. Elena had accepted those terms because the alternative was allowing others to suffer when she could prevent it. Now, moving through the station, hunting those who had tortured her, she wondered sometimes what remained of the woman she had been. The memories were there, but distant, like watching someone else's life. The Elena Volkov who had joined the military years ago would have been horrified by the things Baba Yaga 3 could do without hesitation. But that Elena was gone, burned away by years of training and conditioning. What remained was a weapon, a very effective weapon. The first power coupling overloaded on schedule, causing a minor disruption in the station's secondary systems. Security teams rushed to investigate. Elena used the distraction to move closer to the command center, eliminating 2 guards who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The second coupling failed 15 minutes later. Emergency lights activated throughout several sections. Velkash ordered non-essential personnel to evacuate to their designated emergency stations. The station was descending into chaos, and he knew exactly who was orchestrating it. "She's hurting us," Velkash said quietly, watching security displays show personnel movements throughout the complex. "All of this, the sabotage, the attacks, she's forcing us to concentrate our forces in specific areas." "Then we know her pattern," suggested his tactical officer. "We can anticipate where she'll strike next." "Can we?" Velkash was not so sure. Every time they thought they understood her strategy, Elena did something unexpected. She was not following any tactical doctrine he recognized. She was improvising, adapting, using methods that combined military training with something more primal. In the command center, Zarthex watched his remaining senior officers argue about evacuation procedures. Major Krell insisted they should flee. Captain Dorovan wanted to organize an offensive sweep. Intelligence Director Shaxra suggested surrendering the human to a military vessel for transport to high-security facility elsewhere. "We do not surrender to prisoners," Zarthex said coldly. "We do not run from a single enemy operative. We hold this position and eliminate the threat." The third power coupling exploded with more force than the previous two. The blast severed a primary power line, causing cascading failures throughout the station's energy grid. Emergency systems activated, rerouting power through backup conduits. The security barriers around the command center flickered. In that moment, Elena was already moving. She had positioned herself in the access tunnel above the command center during the power failures, waiting for exactly this opportunity. The barrier went down for 4 seconds. She dropped through the ceiling vent, firing the plasma rifle before her feet touched the floor. 2 guards fell. She rolled behind a console as return fire scorched the air where she had been. 3 more shots, precise and calculated. 3 more guards down. The elite warriors surrounding Zarthex were fast, well-trained, and experienced. But Elena was faster. Her neural implants accelerated her reflexes beyond normal human limits. She saw threats before they developed, responded to movements before they completed. She moved through the command center like death itself, each motion efficient and deadly. Guards fell. Weapons clattered to the floor. Screams echoed off metal walls. Major Krell tried to run. Elena shot him in the back. Intelligence Director Shaxra raised her hands in surrender. Elena killed her anyway. These were war criminals. This was justice, not combat. Zarthex watched his guards die one after another, unable to stop the human nightmare cutting through them. 20 elite warriors reduced to bodies on the floor in less than 2 minutes. Then it was just the 2 of them. Elena and Zarthex standing in the blood-soaked command center while alarms wailed and emergency lights flashed. Zarthex raised his weapon, hands trembling. "You're a monster." Elena's voice was calm, almost gentle. "You created monsters to fight your wars. You tortured prisoners because you thought fear was power. Now you learn what real monsters look like. Kill me then. Complete your mission." Elena lowered her rifle slightly. "No, you're going to live. You're going to tell everyone what happened here. You're going to warn them what happens when they torture human prisoners. You're going to spend the rest of your life knowing that you're alive because I chose to let you live." She moved forward and struck him once, precisely, rendering him unconscious. Then she turned and walked toward the command center's main exit, where Commander Velkash stood with his remaining security force. They did not fire. They simply watched as she approached. This blood, the Calthrine stealth shuttle slipped through the void, its advanced systems rendering it nearly invisible to sensors. Inside, Elena sat in the pilot's chair, monitoring the navigation displays. Her destination was a human military outpost 3 days away at current speed. Behind her, Detention Complex Omega 7 was in chaos. 127 dead, 17 of them high-ranking intelligence officers who had been targets of her mission. The rest were guards and personnel who had been involved in her interrogation or gotten in her way during the operation. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just the hollow emptiness that always came after completing a mission. The Baba Yaga protocol had removed many emotions from her, filed them away as unnecessary distractions. What remained was duty, purpose, and the knowledge that her actions would save others from similar suffering. The shuttle's computer alerted her to incoming transmissions on multiple channels. Calthrine military frequencies were exploding with activity. Reports of the incident were spreading rapidly through their command structure. Some messages called for immediate military response against humanity. Others urged caution, investigation, understanding what had really happened. Elena listened to the transmissions in silence, her enhanced hearing picking up nuances in the alien voices. Fear, anger, confusion. The Calthrine had believed themselves superior to humanity. Now that belief was shaken. Meanwhile, on the Calthrine homeworld, the High Council gathered in emergency session. Reports from Detention Complex Omega 7 had reached the highest levels of government. The images were disturbing. Security footage showed a single human operative systematically eliminating some of their best intelligence officers. Supreme Commander Tharnak reviewed the evidence with growing concern. This human, this Baba Yaga 3, she was tortured for days and then did this? Yes, Supreme Commander. Our interrogators used standard and enhanced techniques. Physical torture, psychological warfare, everything in our protocols. She endured it all without breaking, then escaped and executed a precision elimination mission. How many of these Baba Yaga operatives do the humans have? The intelligence officer consulted his data. According to what we've learned, 12. Each one is considered a strategic military asset. Each one has a perfect mission record. Tharnak felt a chill run through his body. 12 operatives like the one who had just devastated their interrogation complex. 12 weapons that could infiltrate, survive torture, and eliminate high-value targets. The implications were staggering. What are the humans demanding? Nothing yet, Supreme Commander. But we intercepted a message they sent 8 days ago, demanding the release of this specific prisoner. The message warned us of consequences if she was not treated according to galactic conventions. And that message was ignored? Yes, Supreme Commander. The official who received it did not understand its importance. Tharnak closed his eyes. Political careers would be destroyed over this. But worse than that, they had just handed humanity a propaganda victory. The Calthrine Empire, which prided itself on military superiority, had captured and tortured a human prisoner. That prisoner had then single-handedly destroyed their interrogation complex and escaped. Open diplomatic channels with Earth immediately, Tharnak ordered. We need to control this situation before it escalates into full war. But it was already too late for control. The Galactic Council had received reports about the incident. Other species were watching, analyzing, drawing their own conclusions about both humanity and the Calthrine Empire. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff, presenting his assessment of the situation. Holographic displays showed tactical data, diplomatic positions, and projections for various outcomes. Colonel Volkov's mission was successful, Chen reported. She eliminated 17 high-value targets, war criminals who had been operating beyond the reach of galactic law. Her actions were a direct response to torture inflicted upon her in violation of the Galactic Convention on prisoners of war. The Calthrine are threatening military action, said General Morrison. They claim we deployed a super soldier specifically to provoke them. Let them threaten, Admiral Chen replied calmly. We have evidence of their violations. We warned them before they tortured Colonel Volkov. They ignored our warning. What happened afterward was simply consequences. The Joint Chiefs debated for hours. Some wanted to use the incident as justification for expanded military operations against the Calthrine. Others urged diplomatic solutions, worried about escalation. Finally, they agreed on a statement for the Galactic Council. Earth's position was simple. Colonel Volkov had been captured, imprisoned, and systematically tortured in violation of multiple conventions. Her actions were self-defense and justified retaliation against war criminals. Humanity would not apologize for what she had done. The Galactic Council reviewed the case in extraordinary session. Representatives from dozens of species examined the evidence. Security footage from the detention complex, medical records showing the torture Elena had endured, records of the intercepted warning that the Calthrine had ignored. After 2 days of deliberation, the Council issued its ruling. The Calthrine Empire had violated the Galactic Convention on Prisoners of War through systematic torture. Colonel Elena Volkov's response, while extreme, was classified as proportional, retaliation by an enhanced combatant against legitimate military targets who had committed war crimes. No, sanctions would be imposed on Earth. The Calthrine would be censured for their treatment of prisoners. The matter was considered closed, but the real consequences extended far beyond the official ruling. Throughout Calthrine military installations, new protocols were implemented. Prisoners were to be treated according to all conventions. Interrogators were forbidden from using torture, and any prisoner identified as potentially being a human Baba Yaga operative was to be handled with extreme caution. More importantly, the other species in the galaxy had learned something important about humanity. These newcomers, these primitive beings from a remote planet, had created weapons that rivaled anything the older civilizations could field, and they had done it out of necessity because they refused to be victims. 3 days after her escape, Elena's shuttle arrived at Human Outpost Theta 9. She transmitted identification codes and was granted immediate clearance to dock. Medical teams and security personnel waited in the docking bay, but Elena walked past them on her own, refusing assistance despite her injuries. Admiral Chen met her in a secure briefing room. He stood when she entered, noting the exhaustion in her eyes, the healing wounds on her visible skin, the way she moved with careful precision. "Mission accomplished, Colonel?" Elena nodded once. 17 targets eliminated. 1 survivor left to deliver the message. 0 friendly casualties. You were supposed to gather intelligence on their detention facilities, not conduct an elimination operation. The intelligence was gathered. The elimination became necessary when they chose to torture me. The mission parameters allowed for adaptive response to changing circumstances. Chen sighed. He had commanded military operations for 30 years, but he still found the Baba Yaga operatives difficult to understand. They were so far beyond normal human psychology that talking to them sometimes felt like talking to very sophisticated machines. "The Calthrine won't touch another human prisoner," Elena continued. "Word is spreading through their military. They're afraid now. That was the objective. Make them afraid of the consequences." "At what cost, Elena?" She looked at him with those dark, calm eyes. "The same cost I've always paid, Admiral. The cost I volunteered to pay when I entered the program." She was right, of course. Every Baba Yaga operative had been a volunteer. No one was forced into the program. They chose it knowing what it would do to them, because someone had to be willing to make that sacrifice. "Medical wants to check your injuries," Chen said quietly. "I'll report after debriefing is complete. There are things you need to know about Calthrine interrogation techniques, information that might save lives." They talked for 3 hours. Elena provided detailed analysis of everything she had experienced and observed. The torture methods, the psychological tactics, the security weaknesses in their detention facilities. All of it was recorded, cataloged, and would be distributed to human military forces throughout the galaxy. When the debriefing finally ended, Elena stood to leave. Chen stopped her with a question that he knew was probably pointless but felt compelled to ask anyway. "Was it worth it, Elena? Becoming what you are?" She paused at the door, not turning around. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost too quiet to hear. "Every human prisoner who won't be tortured because of what I did. Every soldier who won't have to volunteer for this program because the enemy is too afraid to provoke us. Every person who gets to keep their humanity because I gave up mine. Yes, Admiral, it was worth it." Then she was gone, walking down the corridor toward the medical bay, leaving Chen alone with his thoughts. In her quarters hours later, Elena stood before a mirror, removing her uniform for the first time in days. Her body was covered in scars, some from the recent torture, many more from years of missions and training. Each one a mark of what she had endured, what she had survived, what she had become. She